My name is Tyler Heaston. I'm the owner and operator of Heaston's Home Remodeling, and this is my K-truck that I use for work. My 1994 KS4 Subaru Sambar. Probably the greatest purchase I've ever made. I've had her for about 2 years now. 2.5 years, I think. Something like that. And I've only had a bunch of problems with it, but it's awesome. They're easy to fix, the problems. I just don't fix them, is all. I've put it through hell and back. Or at least as much hell as it could probably go through. Speaking anyways. You know, I think this is the first time it's actually been in the garage since I moved to this place. It sits outside and just gets beat up. It's about 22 degrees here. My garage is heated, I just don't have propane. So it's still pretty cold, you can see my breath. But I love this thing. You know, 4-wheel drive, 5-speed manual, 6-foot bed, and it's rear engine. For the first time in my life, I can say I have a rear engine vehicle. It's not impressive. It doesn't go very fast. In fact, it's quite slow. 43 horsepower. I know, you'll have to sit down for that one. But she has to be the best purchase I've ever made. I put a ladder rack on it. I thought it made it look a little more professional because I use it for business, but I never use the ladder, so 1,500 pounds of raw fury this thing is. It'll handle snow up to about the bumper, about 12 inches until you lift it, but you know, she is the best. Now, I use this thing as a work truck. It gets beat up, you know, it's gonna get some rust. It's not gonna, you know, the paint job isn't gonna be perfect. The wheels are gonna get curbed. They have already, but I love the way this thing runs and drives. The lowness of the bed makes it so much easier to put stuff in it. You know, I can even use it as a sawhorse for plywood. I can park it in someone's front yard, and it doesn't even leave tire marks because it's essentially a lawnmower. You know, I've put probably close to 2,000 pounds in the back of this thing, and it squatted down for sure. And the tires were bubbling a little bit. And uphill, my top speed was probably 40 miles an hour, but man, it's all worth it when you get to the job site and you can unpack a pallet without even hopping up onto a step or, you know, sprawling it out. You can grab stuff from a pallet from either end of the bed. It's like, it's perfect. I mean, I can't explain just how many scenarios this thing has been useful for. One time I loaded up drywall in the back of it and drove it around the back of this guy's house because otherwise we would have had to carry like 9 sheets of drywall up and around, and you know, that's a lot of work. I don't really feel like doing all that. So we loaded up the drywall, and the mini truck just barely fit between the gate and the side of the fence. It was magnificent. Should have been there. I have a picture. Can it do long distance? And the answer is absolutely. I took mine to the Seneca Resort in Niagara Falls, and I live in southeast PA. So it was about a 7-hour drive. Was it comfortable? No. Was it fast? No. It was fuel efficient, 23 miles per gallon. You know, we got there probably it was like a 6-hour trip. We probably got there in about 8 hours. I think it was close to about a 1,200 mile round trip. And I packed a bunch of extra parts, a blower motor, a starter, stuff like that, just stupid things, an alternator. Handled it great. It snowed sometimes when we were there. We went over to Canada quite a few times, so you can take it across the border if you want. Nobody bats an eye. We visited the CN Tower, my girlfriend and I. You know, it'll do long distance. It'll do highway speeds, probably topping out around 60, 65 on the highway, and it doesn't complain. Now, what kind of problems has it had in the last 2.5 years? Well, let's see. My coolant temperature gauge, something failed with that. It all started when I put on this front bumper here. But I also, at the same time, put on these lights in this winch. So I think I screwed something up electrical. But I'm not totally sure because shortly after that, my fuel gauge stopped working. And I bought a new gauge cluster, and the coolant temperature also did not work on that. So I screwed up something probably, but who cares? I haven't had a problem for the last year with it. It hasn't overheated anyway. What else there is? Well, just recently, the starter went out on it, and I guess it's been a long time coming. Because every now and then it would stop working, and I just kind of clean the connection and then go on my merry way. You know, there was that. Do you count rust? Because that's starting to come around, and I mean I drive it in the snow pretty vigorously, but you know there's that. My parking brake doesn't quite go down all the way anymore. It kind of just sticks up and it's floppy. Probably the biggest issue, and I don't know if I'll make a separate video for that, but probably the biggest issue that I've ever had with it that rendered it useless. When I first bought it, it got pretty cold, and I went to drive it one morning. I noticed the throttle was a little sticky. It was kind of weird. But then shortly after that, my gas pedal got stuck all the way to the floor. So that was, you know, a pretty big issue. Now, as far as what happened, since the engine's in the back, the throttle cable goes all the way down, back, and around. And inside that housing, I'm guessing that some water got in there and then it froze. And boy, did it have a grip on the gas pedal. I couldn't get it. I couldn't pull it back. It was so bizarre. But as far as that goes, I think, aside from my giant crack that you may or may not be able to see here, I think that's about it. Yeah, I'd say that's about it. Now here in Pennsylvania, we have to register them as antiques. It says specifically on the DMV website that they can be registered as antiques only. There's no more unrestricted registrations for it, as in like you can't get a regular plate and go through the, you know, PA inspection and all that. None of that exists anymore for these. And I think I think the old people that had them, you could get grandfathered in. So you didn't necessarily have to register as an antique after it's registered as a regular vehicle. But after you sell it, then you have to register as an antique. I bought mine from a private seller here in Pennsylvania, and it took me about 2 months to get it registered. We sent off the paperwork, and then DMV sends it back saying they're missing something, back and forth. And then eventually it comes back and it's all hunky-dory and I can finally drive it. Which honestly, I wouldn't rather have it any other way with the antiques, because you don't have to get it inspected. So there's no registration renewal. It's one flat fee. It's like $100 or something like that, and then you're good for life. Lost my 14 millimeter. How'd that happen? Driving the Sambar. You may notice occasionally this light down here. Don't know if you can see it down here. That's my e-brake. Doesn't quite go down all the way. It's fine. You can see my coolant gauge doesn't work and my fuel gauge does not work. So my methodology of finding out how much fuel I need or how much I have is just watching the trip odometer go. I know about 300 kilometers I gotta refill. This thing is just an absolute blast to drive. I can't express how much I love this truck. It's so awesome. I mean, you get looks everywhere you go. It's perfect for marketing for me. You know, I love talking about it. It brings out the other enthusiasts. It's not like, you know, it's rare enough for people to approach you, you know, because they know you're not like, you know, like out of their class or whatever. Like if you're driving a McLaren or something, you know, people aren't going to approach you as much because they're like, oh, well, he's going to blow me off or something. But, you know, someone who has a K truck, well, they're probably, you know, they're probably down to chat. I don't know. It's just so inviting. It's such an inviting vehicle. And that's why I love it so much. It just, every time I go to a gas station or something, you know, there's always someone that says something to me about it. Yeah. The turning radius on this puppy, fantastic. I love it. I can drive it on a sidewalk. I've driven it on a sidewalk to deliver some materials. You know, it's just perfect in every single way. As long as you don't need to tow anything or haul anything extremely heavy, you know. I've had, like I said before, I've had like 2,000 pounds in the back of this thing, and the only time my speed was affected was uphill, and it's affected uphill anyway. After 2.5 years, I don't get tired of driving it. I'm gonna keep this until it rusts into the ground, and which it will eventually. The only like downside that I've noticed is that dirt and debris just kind of works its way up into the engine bay because it's so low to the ground. Salt and everything like that. Like there's salt on top of my intake box. You know, it's just it just works its way up there because it's so low to the ground. It's right there. You know. The other week we got like 7 inches of snow here, and it was just dogging it. I mean, it was, you know, it was a beast, kicking butt. Seven inches of snow isn't that impressive, but you know, it just wasn't slipping at all. I was going around turns and everything, you know. It just kicked butt. I love it.